Welcome to the Spring-Summer 2017 Florida Standards Assessments, Next Generation Sunshine State Standard Assessments, School Coordinator Training. Before we begin, I want to remind you about test security policies and procedures for state testing. It is imperative that teachers and test administrators get the manual 72 hours prior to testing, and all security policies and procedures are followed throughout the course of spring testing. Also, please be reminded that anything that comes up should be communicated directly to you and then directly to this office for further instruction. Along with the testing manual, there are two manuals that are only available on the FSA portal. That is the TIDE User Guide and the Test Administrator User Guide. Please make sure that both of these are accessible to those folks at your site who need them. Shown here are the 3 months for spring testing. Please be mindful that these are windows. However, you still must follow the plan set forth by the district. To begin, FSA writing for paper pencil testing is on Tuesday, February 28th. It is a one-day test for all students taking the writing test on paper. That includes students in grades 4 through 7 and also anybody who receives writing paper test accommodation. Please be mindful, this is a one-day test with a one-day makeup, and all materials for paper pencil writing tests are due on Friday. They will be picked up by logistics. Also, please remember that grade 3 ELA will be in March and on paper. However, grade 3 math will be in April. Please make sure that you are following the order set forth by the district for the EOC tests. And as always, once you finish the majority of students in a tested content, then you can start the next group of students to test. For example, if you finish the bulk of your U.S. history students by April 19th, you can go ahead and start your geometry EOC test on Thursday, April 20th, and so on. Also, please remember that paper tests are due on specific dates and must be turned in on time. If you have a student who is a computer-based tester and gets paper as an accommodation, if the test is turned back late to the state, that student's score will be late reported. Included in your handouts are the test administration times. Please remind test administrators that they must allow the exact amount of time allotted for each test session. Test sessions should not start near the end of the day when there is not enough time to provide to students. Also, please make sure that you have a plan in place for students who are taking the computer-based assessment and may click submit prior to the full time allowed for other students. We do not want to cause a disruption for any other student who does need the entire allotted time to finish. Also, for paper pencil testers, they will keep their tests at their desks, and the test administrator can tell them to go back and check their work. This would include grade 3 ELA and also science. This year, all elementary math, grades 3 through 5, will be online. Please make sure that students are ready to go for this spring in grade 3. This is new for them to take a test online. Make sure that they practice prior to taking the test in April. Their ELA assessment, as previously mentioned, is still on paper. Grade 3 ELA is the only assessment that's on paper. ELA for 4th and 5th is also online. Writing, of course, is paper for all grades in elementary school. The FSA Secure Browser must also be downloaded. However, if you are a district networked school, that will be taken care of for you. Now, the ELA writing scripts have a scheduled stretch break at 60 minutes. As in the past, we have done a short stretch break and had students continue to test. More information will be coming out regarding the stretch break. Schools are now required to report whether or not students have testing accommodations listed in an IEP or 504 plan. This must be captured on the pre-ID file as well as added to the student if in TIDE. Schools must maintain records of accommodations provided and accommodations used with their record of administration information. This is new. In the past, it was only used. Now, we have to record if they have them and use them. Also, that what is new and not really required for this administration is the new Florida identification number. This will this summer replace our student ID, that is the Social Security number followed by an X. Please be reminded that we are still using the traditional social with an X for the spring administration. Closed captioning is now available for the ELA reading assessment for students who have this as an allowable accommodation identified in their IEP or 504. Please make sure that eligible students have been assigned this accommodation in TIDE prior to testing and that they practice using this new accommodation. When it is available and ready to roll out, we will alert you from the district assessment office. Also, there are participation reports and test completion reports in TIDE. The online reporting system, or ORS, that you were used to using in the past is no longer available. Also, please be reminded that while these reports are helpful, they may not be exact because there is a time delay. If you will be administering one of the accommodated versions of the FSA assessment this spring, you will need to download the Spring-Summer 2017 FSA Accommodations Test Administration Manual. This is only located on the FSA portal, and it does include the scripts for teachers. It is very important that the calculator policy is followed or tests will be invalidated. For FSA Mathematics, only students in grades 7 and 8 will receive a calculator, and that is only allowed on sessions 2 and 3. For the EOC assessments that are FSA, Algebra, Algebra 2, and Geometry, handheld calculators are allowed on session 2. It is also important that you let your test administrators know of this policy. They have to ensure that students only receive calculators on the required sessions. Also, please be minded that the scientific calculator that is allowed, if it has on the window screen where you see numbers, if there's 2 lines of numbers allowed, those are the wrong calculator. Do not allow those calculators on a test. If students use that calculator, their test will be invalidated. If a student is taking the old algebra assessment, this would be seniors and adult students, they are still allowed to use a 4-function calculator only. They do not get to use a scientific calculator as the FSA EOC. Please make sure that they have the old 4-function calculator. If they use the other one, it will be invalidated. Please remember that all students in grades 4 through 10 need to have headphones or earbuds for the ELA assessment for both sessions. Also, please make sure that you are completing the test in the correct order, session 1 before session 2 and before session 3 for FSA Mathematics. While this is easy for computer-based testing because you can't complete session 2 before session 1, for those students who have paper as an accommodation or for students in grade 3 ELA, session 1 must come before session 2. I understand that this can be problematic for makeup testing. However, this is per the state and we have to follow their guidelines. Also, please be reminded that a student taking session 1 cannot be in a room with a student taking session 2. Therefore, for makeup scenarios, students need to be grouped accordingly. If a student mistakenly submits their assessment, please contact the assessment office at 272-4341 so we can reopen the test or the test session for you. Please be mindful that this request should not come at the end of the day. If a student leaves campus, the testing event has ended and we cannot reopen the test for the student. Again, please let your test administrators know that if a student accidentally submits the test, they should immediately call the office to alert you, and then you can contact us so we can open that test for that student as soon as we can so the student has enough time to finish their assessment. Also, it is not required or necessary to contact us to reopen a test if a student is in pause or simply logs out. The student just needs to log back in with their test ticket with a new session ID. For students taking computer-based tests, they do have the Select Response Version tool. This is for the items where the students are required to type their answers. If they would like to see a different response that they have already entered, they can view and restore that response. However, this is only good for the session that they are currently in. They cannot go back to a different session and see what was there the prior day. It is only live while the student is actually taking that assessment on that particular day. Included in your handout is the test incidents and irregularities document. Please be reminded that if anything happens, this form needs to be completed. Also, if you think that something should be invalidated, contact the assessment office at 272-4341. As a reminder, schools do not invalidate tests. The assessment office does. And also, please make sure that if something does happen, that you contact us as soon as possible. Do not wait for the end of the day, because we hopefully can save the test record and get the student to finish within the day before they leave campus. Also, be reminded that students who receive extended time, specifically in grades 6 through 8 mathematics, could do one part a day over the course of 3 days. They can do session 1 on one day, session 2 on the next, and session 3 on the third day. Also remember that sessions 2 and 3 get the calculator, session 1 does not for 7th and 8th grade mathematics students. 6th grade does not get calculators. Also make sure that these students who get this extended time accommodation have an IEP or 504 which clearly states that they have extended time. As just a side note, do not start a student who gets extended time near the end of the school day. They have to be able to have enough time to take the test as per their IEP or 504. Please let your technology coordinator and test administrators know that they can find everything that they need to contact the FSA help desk in Appendix B of the manual. This will be very important if something comes up. It's real quick, it's in the back of the book, and it's got all the information you'll need. For students at grades 4 through 7 in writing, for grade 3 ELA, and for any accommodated paper pencil tester, you can print on-demand labels for transfer in and new students. Also, at these tested grade levels, you can also put a label over a label, but again, this is only for the FSA tests, grades 4 through 7 writing, grade 3 ELA, and any accommodated paper pencil tester. This does not include science at grades 5 and 8. Science is a different vendor, and you have to use the label sent with that vendor or hand grid the document. Also, as mentioned earlier, we will be providing you the login information for students for the district networked computers. All public school students enrolled in tested grade levels and subjects are expected to take the Spring 2017 FSA test. If a parent asks you about our opt-out procedures, please remind them that we do not have any opt-out procedures because it is not allowed per statute. If a student is on campus on the initial day that they are expected to test, they should be put into a testing room. Also, be reminded that students for ELA must take the same grade level ELA writing and ELA reading test in order to receive an ELA score. For students who are taking a higher level math class, for example, a 6th grader that is taking 7th grade math or a 7th grader taking 8th grade math, you will have to go in on a prescribed date that we will alert you and change their tested math grade to the higher level. Again, we will alert you when that time is, because if you do it too soon, then when we do the next upload of data into the platform, it will erase any changes you made. So wait for the date and it will be coming out soon. Virtual school program students are expected to also take the assessment. Full-time virtual school program students are enrolled in public education. This does not include students who are enrolled in home education. Typically, when we talk to parents, they may be unaware if their student is a home ed student versus a virtual student. Therefore, if a parent contacts you, the first step you should do is look on the mainframe and see if they are in the home education browse window. If the student is there, that is a home education student, and you can schedule them to come test during your testing time. Also, students who receive virtual instruction part-time, those are traditionally your students, so you would just test them in your general population. If the student is again a home education student and taking some classes online, you would treat that student as a home education student. ELL students are expected to take the statewide assessment. Students who are ELL less than 1 must take the WIDA if they are not going to be taking the FSA ELA assessment. It is very important that they must take the Access for L's or WIDA in order to not take the FSA assessment. Also be reminded that if a student is an 10th grader but ELL less than 1, they still will have to meet the graduation requirement. Therefore, they should take the grade 10 ELA test so they do not miss a graduation opportunity. General information regarding accommodations is located in Appendix A of the manual. This includes accommodations for your ELL students, your 504 students, and your ESE students. Please ensure that your test administrators are aware of the location of all of the accommodation information in the manual, and that if they are responsible for testing a student with an accommodation, that they understand what is expected of them and what the student needs to have a correct administration of their test. As previously mentioned, all security procedures must be in place when conducting makeup testing, and sessions must be completed in order. CBT worksheets are one-page letter-sized worksheets that are used for ELA reading. The testing rules acknowledgement is printed on the back of the CBT worksheet. Worksheets are to be distributed to students at the beginning of each ELA reading test, and they need to be picked up at the conclusion of each ELA test. Students should not be given their same worksheet on day 2, especially if there is anything written on it. Also be reminded that any worksheet is considered a secure material and needs to be put into locked storage and then returned in the district coordinator only box. As a reminder, the DOE does not provide CBT worksheets for any NGSSS tests, so you will have to use the worksheet that's available in Appendix D of the manual. For computer-based mathematics assessments, the students will receive a Florida computer-based testing work folder, which is a 4-page folder, and the testing rules acknowledgement is printed on page 2. There's also a back page that has graph paper on it. Again, just like the CBT worksheets, as soon as a student receives these, they are considered secure. They must be picked up at the end of each session and then returned in locked storage, and then finally returned to us in the DCO box. For students at grades 6 through 8, for sessions 2 and 3, if they are staying in the same room and not moving, they can get their work folder back to use for session 2 and session 3. All students taking the ELA writing assessment at grades 4 through 10 will receive a writing planning sheet. Again, these, just like the work folders and worksheets, are considered secure documents and must be picked up at the conclusion of testing, kept in locked storage, and returned in the DCO box. Reference sheets are available for grades 4 through 8 mathematics and all EOC mathematics assessments. However, they are only available online during the assessment. The reference sheet is displayed in a pop-up window in their respective tests. If you choose to make hard copies for students, it is available in the appendix of the appropriate manual, but you must make copies for all students on campus. The reference sheets are also available on the FSA portal or on the NGSSS portal in Avocet. Be reminded that reference sheets are considered secure materials at the conclusion of the test session and need to also be returned with your other materials in your DCO box. Just like work folders, worksheets, and reference sheets, test tickets are pieces of paper given to students that are considered secure materials and must be stored in secure storage prior to and after testing, and then returned in the DCO box to us at the conclusion of testing. Please remember that test tickets have student information on them, but the biggest use of test tickets after students log in is to have the test administrator go around the room, pick up a ticket, and fill out their seating chart so we are 100% sure which student sat in which seat during the testing event. As previously shared, students must have headphones or earbuds for both sessions of ELA reading at grades 4 through 10. The DOE does not provide them, so students should come to the testing room with headphones or earbuds, or the school must provide them. Make sure that the headphones or earbuds are plugged in prior to launching the secure browser so nothing kicks the student out of the testing event. Also, several tools are available for students who are taking computer-based tests, and that document was provided to you within your training materials. Please make sure test administrators and students understand what tools are available, and students practice with these tools prior to the testing event. Computers should be prepared prior to testing. As a reminder, there is a new secure browser, so charter schools, you will have to make sure that your computers are ready for spring testing. In an effort to make sure that we are ready, on February 8th, the FSA infrastructure trial will happen. This has been in the past what we call our stress test. Again, we are not concerned that our network will not be able to manage online testing. This is more of making sure that your computers are ready and operational for the spring assessment. Prior to testing, student demographic information must be gathered and verified. Students' primary exceptionality or Section 504 information needs to be gathered and ensured that students are receiving the allowable accommodations per their plans. Testing accommodations that are listed on the IEP or 504 plan must also be communicated with the test administrator so that teachers and test administrators understand what students receive during the testing event. After gathering the necessary student demographic information regarding your ESE 504 and ELL students, you will have to make notes of what accommodations students need, and it needs to be recorded on the test administrator required administration information log. Please make sure that you check out Appendix A for the description of allowable accommodation and the categories in which they fall. When you have your test administrator meeting, please also highlight Appendix A and show your teachers and test administrators the allowable accommodations and also these categories. Students must be provided with the allowable statewide accommodations on their plans. It is very important that students get the accommodations that they are allowed to have. Specifically, we run into problems with extended time. Please make sure that if a student has extended time that they are allowed to use that accommodation. Also, any accommodation used and/or provided needs to be notated on the required administration information log. Please make sure that your demographic information for your ELL students is updated and accurate. You will need to know less than 1 year status and 1 year or more status, and those dates need to be inputted into the mainframe. Shown here are the test indicator codes. The majority of your students are going to be E's for eligible for computer-based testing. The other codes are the codes that signify a different mode of test for a student. During testing, a test administrator should not attempt to resolve technical issues if it is going to be disruptive to students. The test administrator must contact the school coordinator for next steps without leaving the students unattended. If a student is having great difficulty logging in or staying logged in, they should not continue attempt to make the student test. This will only further aggravate the situation, and the student will not be in the right frame of mind to take the test. They should be instructed with a way to contact you in order to move forward and triage the situation. Please make sure that you provide your test administrators and technology coordinator with the list of error codes that was one of the handouts from the meeting. Also noted here is the FSA help desk phone number and their email address. While this is open for an extended period of time, it is always best to contact us first. If we tell you contact the FSA help desk, please make sure you tell the folks at the help desk that you have students actively taking a test and you need to talk to a level 2 person immediately. As always, contact us, Assessment and Accountability. Our phone number is 272-4341. Thank you for ensuring a secure and successful test administration. Happy testing!